Our next wonderful panelist is Phillip Addis.
So this is in fact my first crack at performing Figaro in Barber of Seville. And so I'm still discovering a lot. I'm still figuring out who Figaro is. And it's a pretty satisfying search, actually. Part of it has to do with what I'm finding in the score, but also a big part of it is based on what we are building as a team, as a cast. It's a lot of fun so far. I've sung bits of Figaro for a long time now. In fact, I think I first started working on the aria, on the La Factotum. Let's see, it would be about 2000. Yeah, 2000 actually. When I first studied, I had my first voice lessons with Patricia Kern in Toronto. She was my teacher there for the 2 years that I was at the University of Toronto's opera division, which is a great program. It was the right place at the right time for me in terms of really getting to know what opera was all about. I got into it. I don't know if it really is late in life, but I was studying music. I did my bachelor's at Queen's University, but I was playing tuba for the first 2 years, and then after a few voice lessons there, switched to voice. But yeah, and so I guess I sort of cracked the score open on Figaro. Yeah, it's 14 years ago now. But for one reason or another, I've had just other projects that have gotten in the way of the few offers that I've had for Figaro, but I think also I was just seen as having a bit of being a bit of a specialist in the French repertoire, which is a great compliment because I'm an Anglophone, but I've learned my French in school. Yeah, so this is the first time that a barber's come my way for me to really dig deep and explore. So far, well, to comment on one of the things that Maestro Dean said about the recitatives, he's absolutely right in that for me that's the biggest challenge, is to find the sort of specificity in how you deliver the text when the music that supports it in the recitatives is a bit less sort of stellar compared to, say, Mozart's recitatives. They're still exciting, but you have to work harder to make them exciting. I think that makes sense. And there's something about the Mozart recits that are just so incredibly catchy that they sort of engrave themselves in your brain, after you read through them a couple of times. So that's been one of the biggest challenges for me, is to really bring it to life, to bring it off the page, and to make sure that we're all really listening to each other, we the cast members. That's actually, that's the biggest key in any kind of acting, and it definitely holds true in the recits, and also in the ensembles, where you're only really going to know what's coming next if you're really present and really paying attention to what the other cast members are saying. And in order for all of that to work, you in fact have to know the whole opera. And there's a temptation, well, it's a laziness actually that I think a lot of people fall into when they first start learning a role. And I'm as guilty as any other singer, where you go straight to your part, you just learn your lines in isolation, and but you have to kind of slap yourself in the face and make sure that you learn all the lines pretty early on, or else, well, you won't know what's coming next. And in terms of, especially in a piece like this where the drama moves forward very quickly, there's a lot of exposition in the first act, and so you're constantly feeding new information into the story. So yeah, you really have to just know the whole thing. So it's kind of a big mountain to climb for this my first experience. I have the distinct advantage of having an excellent vocal coach at my disposal. My wife Emily Hamper is a very gifted pianist, and she's been a part of I don't know how many productions of Barber of Seville. So she definitely whipped me into shape before my arrival here, because nothing less would do. Also, besides being the first Barber of Seville for me, it's actually only the second Rossini production that I've been a part of. So I really haven't done a lot of Rossini. The previous production was in 2000 and I don't know, a while ago, anyway, maybe 10 years ago or something like that. In Montreal, it was a production of Italiano in Algeri, and it was directed by Alison Grant. And it was my first year as an apprentice in Montreal. I was filling in for, I don't know who, but someone had pulled out of the little Figaro. And so I was thrown into this with, I think I had 3 weeks to learn it. And it's actually quite a big part, but it's a funny part in that you don't drive the action as much as Figaro does. You're sort of a funny sidekick. There's sort of pratfalling.
Commentating almost.
Yeah. So it's a different sort of role, but it's still pretty high energy. Anyway, so that's just to say that I've done a bit of Rossini, but not a whole lot. So this is also stylistically, it's still a bit of an exploration for me as well. Thankfully, a pretty great advisor. Yeah, what else can I touch on?
May I make a suggestion?
Yeah, sure.
Because we've been really talking about staging and so forth more than anything, what has been neglected is to mention, of course, this is an Italian bel canto opera. And of course it demands, there's a tremendous amount of coloratura for these roles. Aladiva and Rosina have extraordinary amounts that were written by Rossini, note by note, for them to execute. But Figaro also has his fair share. I was wondering, would you comment a bit on having to make these switches that you had, coming from one opera that clearly where you're not demanded to do that, and now suddenly you're thrust into the center stage of one of the most famous roles with the most famous comic coloratura aspects to it. How do you handle that?
So, one approach, we're still hashing it out actually, but some good advice that Maestro Dean gave me and my wife also told me I should attempt, but I think I was a little unsure of myself, but I'm going to give it a go, which is to sing these passages actually as legato as possible. Because if you try to sort of aspirate every single one of these fast notes, it gets a bit sort of jackhammerish and get bogged down as well. And your breath isn't moving, and then your support locks up, and it just doesn't produce the same effect. You might be able to keep time, and you may still hit the right notes, but it won't have the sort of the swing that you need to kind of propel yourself through these rapid phrases. So
it's tricky.
Yeah.
There's a character as well. I'm trying to keep in character with that.
Yeah, that's true. Because you don't want to say, okay, here comes the hard part, and just sort of freeze up. You have to do it, with intention. It has to be part of the story that you're telling, and it has to be it has to be driving somewhere dramatically. And yeah, you have to put meaning into this stuff. Otherwise, it's just sort of gymnastics, which can be impressive, but I don't find it as engaging.
Rossini,
right?
He really didn't want any of the gymnastics at all.
Was it?
Not
it was
on
just
their
expected.
Own.
was
Yeah.
just fulfilling expectations?
Well, no, I mean, he wanted to write that, but he wanted singers like you who would put in the meaning to that as well, and not just have it become an exercise.
Yeah, well, I think actually, I don't know exactly what things were like in his time, but I have a feeling that there are actually some pretty fine artists in this day and age.
Absolutely.
Who are able to, well, first of all, to act and sing to a very convincing degree. That's probably something that has kind of had its crests and troughs as well. So maybe that was also some golden age, but the demands on us as acting singers are pretty high now. And frankly, I think that's a good thing for the storytelling and yeah, just for the art form, for engaging audiences.
We're in a very different era, I think, in that sense, because we're sort of, singers talk about getting HD ring all the time. And there's, that demand on acting, singing, and so forth is at a premium now because there's so much more awareness. And the training, I think, has changed, especially very recently in that direction.
Yeah, it's funny, it was even before any of these broadcasts started, but when I was in school, it was still already clear that just in terms of being a really good actor on stage, that was already going to be an essential part. And you can kind of see it. I mean, when I think of, I don't know if I can even name names, so I don't want to anyway, but when you think of, the dozens or even maybe hundreds of singers that I was sort of colleagues with at the student level, the ones who then were able to make the leap to the professional level certainly had an engaging presence on stage beyond what they could do just technically vocally. Yeah, it has to be the whole package, right?
And so in the end, the virtuosity of the coloratura that Rossini wanted is about putting that into the character itself. And it becomes a much trickier thing to try and pull off. So I admire you that you're taking this on. It's not an easy role.
No, it's not easy. But it's sort of, I had a conductor once who spoke of composers who were, some of them sort of, their music radiates energy and feeds you, and other composers are more drained. And Rossini definitely is the kind that leaves you bubbling more than you even were before the curtain, before the overture. And yeah, so he's giving you a lot through the music. And I mean, you spoke of putting the coloratura into the character, but I actually see it as the opposite. The character exists, you have to put it into the coloratura. So yeah, it's a challenge. It's a big challenge, but that's the fun of it too, right? It's a bit of a puzzle. But yeah, with good guidance and a great cast, which I think we really do have here. I think the results will be pretty fun. Great.